Hello, hello, everyone. Hello, Betsy.
Good morning. Yeah, didn't it? Okay. Today is the 27th.
You seem to have lost water. Asking. It's been a prolongation.
Maybe I'll probably have to learn. I was gonna call her and talk to her about something else.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Today is St. Thomas Aquinas, part number 3. And I will be once more exiting the frame to pick up my coffee from Monica's downstairs. But I just want to say, very simple class today. This is actually awesome because Albert Einstein had some kind of quote to the effect of genius is to take complicated things, complex things, make them simple. Theologians talk about the ultimate simplicity of God, right? Complete unified simplicity of God. And then Aquinas, in his most plumber's logic, welcome to logic class. I mean, you've been with us all semester, so this is old hat. You're very much veterans by now. But the greatest and best logic, the most logical logic, is often the simplest. And today we're going to talk about that and also a very simple kind of approach. In the first 2 Aquinian classes, we did his biography plus friends, people like Hildegard of Bingen, etc. St. Francis of Assisi, and friends that obviously mean the communion of saints way. Kind of contemporary figures of the Middle Age period, which is I'll be sending out a general email on Wednesday, works perfectly in that our Spirit and Life for Wednesday is on the Scholastics and Aquinas. Aquinas plus friends is part number 1. Hello, Father. Part number 2 was Aquinas drawn primarily from G.K. Chesterton. We have 4 Aquinas classes left. Today, Wednesday, next week, before spring break, we're going to be working our way through this book, this Reagan book on law, morality, and politics, 2nd edition. So without further ado, I'll excuse myself, as I said, to get my coffee. And when we return, we'll get right into it. Guys, so we're gonna get started. We don't have like commercials and ads in this class, but here's a pamphlet, Pray the Rosary Daily. I wholly agree. I remember, quick sidebar, freshman year of college, I went and I think I prayed the rosary before that, almost, I guess you could say, in a kind of sporadic fashion before starting doing it daily. Praise God. And I think nuns in South Orange, New Jersey had walked into this house and they're like, literally, hey, I want to start praying a daily rosary. Can you help me? Or something like that. And as I always say, like my parents are my heroes. I come from really good Catholic formation, cradle Catholic, always practicing Catholic. Parents, just awesome in that way. But I really wanted to get deeper into this devotion. And I think these nuns gave me this pamphlet. It might even be verbatim. It was very, very cool. So it's nice to see those. So again, if this video ever garners millions of views, all the million people watching, indeed, do this, especially during Lent. Okay, so to begin, my friends, I'm just going to take you systematically through, very easy, very no problem, very, whatever, just nice and relaxed. Under the rubrics of, as I said earlier, not to be repetitive, but we introduced Aquinas plus friends, his context in the scholastic Middle Age period. We talked about Aquinas' biography, G.K. Chesterton. Let's actually see what the man said himself. Courtesy of Trish Schmidt, class number 1, we talked about his 5 proofs from his Summa. Absolutely his most famous, part of his writings, most likely his corpus of writings. Let's just get right to it. Point number 1, and I promise you I will not say any more points the rest of the class. What I mean is like you list them as you want. In the course of this book, in the course of the next 4 classes, we're going to have hundreds of points. It's up to you to determine how you want to take these down. Aquinas says human law is the dictate of reason directing human nature. Is that logical? Is that fallacious? What do you think? Do you agree with that definition? Human law is no more reason dictating and directing human nature, controlling or really kind of like pushing along in the way we want the behavior of people according to their nature. Reason guiding human nature. That's what the law is all about, geared towards ultimately the common good. Is that logical? Is that Plummer's logic? Do you have any problems with that definition?
It's logical, but it's not always the case.
Why not? Tell me that's very Aquinian of you. In this book, he often lists objections. Then give me an objection. Why is not the case?
In the case of the parent, their laws may be oriented towards themselves instead of towards the common good.
Okay. I watched a very good talk last night. Criticizing republicanism and democracy and all these kind of things, criticizing non-monarchy. And people say that, a lot of the kind of Freemasonic drive to attack the church, and especially her temporal power, will often bring up this point. We don't want kings and queens because they're tyrants, they're autocrats. That's certainly correct in some cases. Do you all agree? It's a really interesting question. Logically speaking, and let me stop with that preamble because this whole class, is it logical or not? Pat, what do you think? Do you think monarchy tends towards tyranny? Is that how it usually goes, or no? That's kind of a slander. Not really. Depends. What do you all think?
Sometimes it does. Too often it does. Is what I'm saying.
Very American answer. Okay. Right.
I would change the quote. I would replace the word nature with behavior.
Okay. Let's do that then. Okay, that's awesome. I love that. So Dave Schmidt on Aquinas would say, editing Aquinas, that the law, find my pink, I have it written in pink ink, literally, and I'll show you all. Got this awesome pink pen. See? Very cool. Dave Schmidt would say, human law is the dictates of reason directing human behavior. Okay, yeah.
If our nature, our behaviors come from our nature.
Right.
And
So
we
maybe
can't change people, we can try to change what they do.
And see, this is awesome because let's ask the second question. And again, I told you I'm not going to number today. Just every question doesn't make logical sense. What do you think? Aquinas, for instance, asks when he gets in the statecraft in this book, which we'll probably cover on Wednesday into next Monday. I envision we'll probably spend 3 classes with this book, and the last class I'll have a fun surprise. Well, I've done basic Augustinian biography, Chesterton, this book, and then something else to close him out. Later in this book, when he starts talking about statecraft, he asks the question, should the state prohibit all vice? He says, no. Do you agree? And let me explain a little bit more. What he means is exactly your point. You can't change human nature. Aquinas, obviously being a devout Catholic, his original sin is real. People are flawed. People are always going to want to do bad stuff, even like private bad stuff. This is against what would come later, this kind of utilitarian thing, as long as you're not hurting anyone, right? Trish, why is it a problem if I stay in the basement and smoke all day long? And according to the utilitarians, they were like, there is no problem. I'm not hurting it. I'm just pursuing my own hedonistic pleasure. Who cares? Aquinas would say, no, it's a vice itself, and I'm destroying the temple of the Holy Spirit that is my body, etc. But Aquinas is very much, remember what Chesterton said? He's the most realistic thinker maybe of all time. He's a realist. People are going to do bad stuff. So the state cannot, and it is not in the state's interest to prohibit all vice, only the most serious ones, the ones that destroy the common good, right? Obvious ones, right? Robbery, whatever, theft, even worse crimes than that. Those must be prohibited. But you know what? If a person wants to do stuff in their basement, whatever that may be, the state shouldn't get involved in that. Even Aquinas says, because it might actually have like a rebound boomerang effect. Maybe. What do you think? Yes? Should the state prohibit all vice or no? And again, I'm sorry that I'm so before I'm not letting you answer, forgive me. What I'm saying is Aquinas says even the smallest sin is bad. Even venial sin is wrong. He's not saying it's okay. We're not talking about right and wrong. He's like, vice is always wrong. Should the state be in the business of prohibiting personal vices that don't have a larger corrosive effect, perhaps? What do you think?
The question, whenever you go down that road, is, okay, if I eat too much chocolate, it's a vice, yes. If I do engage in that, then what is the state's response? Is it prison? Is it fine? What are you gonna do?
Maybe I have exactly. I have a response.
So maybe we're gonna outlaw chocolate.
This is a
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. This is why this class is so fun. We can think these examples on our feet. New York State ran into some hot water. And it's a very politicized issue, but about not having big gulp sodas. They banned a 40-ounce soda. You can only buy a 12, right? And the health nut people were like, this is good because it's caring for the common good. The freedom people were like, this is exactly like saying I have to wear a helmet on a motorcycle. It's my body. If I want to drink 40 gulps, this is terrible state tyranny. What do you think?
Isn't that the same state that says, but abortion schools?
Yeah, exactly. Welcome to hypocrisy, welcome to humanity, right? But let's use your example with chocolate. Should the state ban chocolate? Let's stay. Aquinas was never afraid to get on the ground and look at a bug and to the stupidest thing to have the highest truth. It's a great example. Let's just stay in your analogy. Should the state ban chocolate? Yes or no? Let's say the state determines that chocolate is making people irritable, making them lazy. People just want to sit on the couch and eat chocolate and binge eat chocolate while they binge watch Netflix. Should the state ban chocolate or no? Yes or no? Sam Creston, should the state ban chocolate? I know you have no context in this conversation. What are your thoughts? Should the state regulate what you can put in your body? Yes or no?
Those are two different questions.
Answer both.
No to chocolate, although doesn't Montana have a law where you can't it's illegal to gift somebody an amount of chocolate under 10 pounds.
Is that really true?
I think
That's a crazy law.
Yeah.
It's illegal to give somebody a gift of chocolate under 10 pounds.
And what's the consequence?
Under. It has to be 10 or more.
The consequence is 10. Dave,
Life in prison.
no, you want to no.
Life sentence.
No, you want to know what you want to know what the consequence is? For every pound missing, if you're supposed to give 10 pounds, if you gifted 7 only, you're missing 3 pounds to the face from the state.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah.
This is the emergence of Venice, it's the emergence of Missoula, I guess.
Yeah, a pound of fudge chocolate.
Second question, sometimes for some things.
Okay. The context here is we're talking about Thomas Aquinas says, and I'm not going to do the preamble for the 9th time, but we're just neck deep in Aquinas, knee deep, whatever analogy you want, for the next 4 classes. At one point, Aquinas says it is not in the state's interest to ban all vices, like private vices. He says private vices, like sitting in your basement all night, smoking marijuana 24/7, not going to work, even if that's not hurting anyone, and you don't have dependence, whatever. He says all sin is sin. May God preserve us from mortal sin. Even venial sins are bad. Aquinas is not saying state shouldn't ban vice. Vice is good. He's saying it's not worth it. It's not worth the resources, or maybe the backlash, or people start feeling tyrannized, and then it actually upsets the common good. Dave Schmidt. So, what do you think? Should the state ban chocolate? No more preambles from me. Yes or no? Why?
No. I'm gonna ban chocolate for a minute. we just heard from our Pope just a couple weeks ago, you know, homosexuality is a sin, but it's not a crime. And when the state gets involved with, you know, this kind of criminalizing.
Like hair splitting stuff or whatever,
Huh?
like you mean by hair splitting things, like, or,
No, okay, it's just, it's a futile effort. You cannot legislate an attitude, but you
yes,
can
okay.
control or regulate behavior.
That is genius, Dave. That is clean. That is like well done. Because Dave Schmidt wanted to edit Thomas Aquinas' definition, I think, very wisely. But Thomas Aquinas says human law is nothing more than dictates of reason directing human nature. And I like here, I see a corollary how you said, no, maybe change the human behavior. Let's leave the nature, the attitude stuff in place. People will do what they do or act the way they act, according to sadly our fallen nature. But the state, maybe it's in her interest to, in preserving the common good, regulate certain behaviors. I may not be able to smoke it sitting in the middle of the street. And cars can't, I'm just sitting there smoking all day. I can't do that. The police will say, please move, sir. Here's your citation, because I'm holding up traffic. I'm doing the exact same thing, but it's a public vice now, and whatever, you know. Trish, but yeah.
Well, I just feel like the state should be very cautious in interfering in a person's conscience.
Okay.
I just feel like less is more, less is better, you know, just because, you know, especially unless it's grave or it can hurt society, I feel like there's other accommodations that could be made for people to form their conscience, like priests or counselors or whatever.
Yes.
And I just feel like, you know, God gave us free will. And true freedom is to choose the good. And so I just feel like the state really, unless it's clearly negatively impacting society or the family or, you know, the good of the family, then, you know, the state should just let people.
Yeah, and this is that's great. That's awesome. And this is the whole, there's there's 7 Catholic principles of social justice and all this kind of stuff. There's really 2 dominant ones under which everything else falls: solidarity and subsidiarity. And solidarity is famous enough and easy enough to understand. We're all brothers and sisters of Christ. But subsidiarity says whatever should be done on the local level should be. Biden shouldn't be determining everything. Neither should Trump. It should be, you should actually first go to your city council before you go to the state of Idaho or Washington. And in all things restrained. In all things, like, you know, if there's a great thing attributed to the royal family. Does this have to be said? Does it have to be said by me? Does it have to be said now? And if no, then don't say it. Better not say anything. Better like Calvin Coolidge is a very famous US president in the 20s who people love, like a lot of libertarians, because he did nothing. Like that he was before around, like in a positive sense. No, yeah, but right. Like but think about it. Like even beginning, but it's funny, but right. I mean, I'm serious. Like how many times there's this tragic story, God rest his soul, this pilot who died, God rest his soul, who crashed, and his flight instructors had criticized him that in the cockpit, if things were going bad in flight training, he would start pressing random buttons because he felt like he had to be doing something. How often do we run into that problem? Something's going on. I'm a politician. I have to give the appearance that I'm doing something. I'm going to just drive across the state and make a speech, and maybe it hurts. Maybe like sometimes less is more, like you're saying. And Ronald Reagan, right, was famous in saying in his first inaugural, you know, government isn't the solution to the problem, it is the problem. That's like Calvin Coolidge style. Like my job as president is to ensure that other people are nothing men like me, let's say, and allow people in a subsidiarious way. And he was not a Catholic, but a very kind of Catholic idea of like handle their local problems locally. And what's the most local unit? What would Aquinas say? What does logic dictate of our faith is the most local unit in the world? The family, the building block of society, that most local unit, the mother, the father, the domestic kingdom. Okay, Aquinas. I'm going to skip ahead to some pink stars I have and read these first.
Okay.
I can't see your pink stars. That sounded like something out of a fairy tale. Fret not, my child. The fairy godmother will soon show you the pink stars with one swoop of her long gown. Okay. I'm gonna talk about some things that I highlighted later in the book, and then we're just gonna go through the book point by point. And for the last time, wow, I'm being repetitive, but repetition is repetition is the mother of all learning. This is a cool photo of Our Lady and our Lord, baby Jesus. I like this, is a beautiful photo. I don't know what this is. It was a card
I
too.
think it's Lady of the Streets.
Really?
Yeah.
A friend of Covenant House. You and I may never get the chance to meet, but regardless, we are bonded together through God's gift of the baby Jesus. I want to wish you enough peace and joy and confidence to last you all year long. I send you my love. And then someone would sign it. A friend of Covenant. I don't know what Covenant House is. Anyone know what that is?
Covenant House in New York City, provides a place for kids on the street.
Right. So yeah, that would make sense. Thank you. Thank you for lending understanding to a photo I've always found so.
But I think that the painting was originally, a teenage girl holding her sibling.
I thought it was,
Yeah.
I thought it was an anonymous person that a guy used to create that photo. I mean, he didn't even know her name. She came in and.
Wait, that's really a photo?
I mean, no.
No.
painting.
It's cool. No, that's really cool. But so what I want to say was about like the repetition is like for the last time, we're probably going to spend the next 3 classes on this book, I think. And then, but we have 4 classes in Aquinas. The last class will be a fun surprise. We'll be like, we finished this book, Chesterton, there's so much stuff on Aquinas. So skipping ahead before we go systematically through like an army marching in lockstep. And these pages don't matter, but just FYI, page 106, Aquinas talks about there's 3 conditions for virtuous acts. Okay, and he's quoting Aristotle here from Aristotle's Ethics. Virtuous acts require above all else that one act knowingly. If you want to do a virtuous act, you have to know what you're doing. It's kind of think about the opposite of mortal sin, full consent of the will. Is a condition of mortal sin a bad way? Here's full consent of the will is doing good. 1 act knowingly, 2 1 act by choice and for a proper end. So confirming once more, maybe our kind of Teddy's plumber's logic algorithm before B's, right? Once again, act knowingly and for a proper end, teleologically, and 3rd, 1 act steadfastly. So ethics require you know what you're doing. Once more, you know what you're doing and why. What is the goal? And you act steadfastly. Do you agree? Do virtuous acts, do you agree with Aquinas/Aristotle depend upon the intent? Is it indeed the thought that counts, or just I don't care? A person could hate everyone, just give the money to help build the hospital, it's fine. Do we have to act? Is this logical? Does this make logical sense? It's not ethical, it's not good ultimately if there's not, Aquinas would say above all charity in that. That's the ultimate goal. Love God, love neighbor. Good acts must be infused with charity, grace of God. It must be full consent of the will. I'm doing this for this purpose, or no? What's your thought, logicians? Hit me with it.
Can we use an example?
Yeah. So again, I'm a philanthropist, rich oligarch, and I give money to a hospital. In case A, I go in there, I love those children, their families, I do it with love, and I even offer prayer to God. I do this for your glory, God, and to help your brothers and sisters. In the second case, I actually hate people. I love humanity, but I hate individual people, and I'm doing this just because it's a doc on my resume for something. And I even think these people are awful. They're so tax deduction, but the money's the same.
So you were doing an evil in the second case, but God can bring good out of evil.
God, as he does, can bring
So
greater good out of
there
you.
may be good to the hospital, even though it has not brought you closer to God in
Okay.
your action.
Fair
We're
enough.
talking about motive then.
Yeah. How important is motive in good acts? Is this fun? I love this class so much. Like, this is a great logical question. How important is motive?
This goes back in one way to perfect contrition.
Exactly, for sure. Which there it argues against this. Imperfect contrition, I just don't want to go to hell, is sufficient to receive absolution confession. But it'd be better if I had perfect contrition. I don't want to offend God. I have love for God solely. So yeah, 100%.
Here's an example.
But
Think about Saint Therese, her parents. Her parents are saints.
Saint Therese Lisieux.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so her parents are saints. When her parents were having their children, when a baby was born, it was sent out to the country to be nursed by a wet nurse. Her parents were doing it because they thought that was best for the baby.
Mhm.
Of course, objectively, we know it wasn't, but at the time, it was thought that.
Their heart was in the right place.
Their heart was in the right place. But if somebody sent their baby out to be nursed by a wet nurse because they didn't want to bother.
I want to
the
party every
baby,
night. I want to go to my balls. Exactly, yeah,
that
exactly. I want to go to my,
would be a
sure.
different situation. So even if what they did was objectively not the best, they did it with good intentions.
Okay, fair enough. What is the definition of justice according to Aquinas? This is awesome because time out. And this is the last praise of this class, but I do love how just right now we talked about Aristotle's ethics, peripatetic school. Oh, I remember discussing Aristotle. Remember what philosopher talked about justice being the ultimate thing? What philosopher that we covered for 2 classes said justice is the measure of all things? The ultimate thing is to be just. Who said that? Not a Catholic. Who is this guy? Remember? It was Cicero. Exactly. Exactly. And Aquinas quotes on duties often. Okay, exactly. Cicero, justice is the golden virtue. What does Aquinas define justice as? And this is super important talking about Christ, who is all justice and all mercy, whose mercy is his justice is his mercy. There's this divine consubstantiality in God in all things. Father, Son, Holy Spirit of the same substance. Divine, mercy and justice, but they're inseparable. Is Christ true God or is he true man? Yes. Right, like he's both. What does justice mean though? This is a great, great thing. Justice means what? We often think of colloquially, like a criminal is punished, justice was served. Okay. Okay, the golden mean applies throughout. The golden mean, Aquinas loves Aristotle's golden mean. Just the right amount, not too much, too little, just the proper. That justice is part of that. But what is the definition of justice?
There's fairness, equality.
Okay, so continue that. Then justice means everyone gets what? Everyone gets blank.
Fair shot or.
Kind of. It's about fairness, it's about quality. Justice is rendering to others what is due to them. That's amazing. If you walk on the street and tell someone, I hope you get what you deserve. Colloquially, that seems like a mean thing. No. I hope you get what you deserve. You every day help the poor. You blah blah blah. I hope you become the greatest person ever. That would be just. Like, does that make sense? Good or bad? I hope all of you students get exactly what you deserve in this semester. That would be a just statement that people who work hard, I hope they get an A. People that work bad, I hope they get an F. While mercy is so awesome is that all of us are undeserving of heaven, but by the grace of God. So God's mercy is giving us what we don't deserve. Right? Isn't that so cool? The interplay of the Divine Mercy Chapel that I hope all of you, I'm sure all of you do pray in the 3 o'clock hour, imploring God's mercy. We don't want to be, I hope I'm not treated justly by God. I hope God's merciful with me. Mercy is giving people what's not due to them. Me giving a student A who actually has a C-, but they worked really hard and I grade on a curve. That's merciful. It's not just. Just means what they deserve. We can say by the grace of God that perhaps some people have earned in some way. Nothing is separate from God's infusing grace, but someone who's like Itzhak Perlman, he wrote the score for Schindler's List. Perhaps he got what he deserved. It was just in becoming the greatest violinist of all time. He apparently practices 9 hours a day. That seems just. Justice means just giving them their due, good or bad. Okay, page 122. Again, I don't have to say this, but this is all this is Aquinas, duh, of course. Here 122, he's on Cicero, and he's asking the question, is justice the most important moral virtue? And Aquinas says, yes. Aquinas agrees with Cicero. He's always quoting the philosopher, he means Aristotle, he agrees with Cicero.
The most important what virtue?
Most important virtue, period. So even in objections, he does, no, generosity might be a greater virtue than justice. Magnanimity might be greater than justice. Courage greater than justice. And then in response to his objections, he says all those are based on justice. Justice is the foundational thing. Justice, giving everyone what they're due. Above all, number one, God, giving God his first fruits. Love God above all. What is the first commandment? First, justice is due to God. First fruits to God. That's why I once answered this in an AMA to some young woman who was saying, what are atheists? What do they not do that Christians can do? I say nothing. Atheists can be good people, morally, whatever, but they violate the most important law of justice of not rendering to God his due by not believing in God. So that's totally criminal in a sense, right? Like, yeah, I know atheists who are nicer, kinder, funnier. I like a lot of atheists more than Christians, maybe all fine. But if you don't first love God above all, nothing matters, right? That's the first just cause. I answered that, Aquinas, if we should be speaking of legal justice, justice is clearly the most important virtue since the common good surpasses the individual good of individual persons. And so the philosopher says in the Ethics, Aristotle, he says philosopher, it's always Aristotle, but agreeing with Cicero, justice seems to be the most distinguished virtue, and neither the evening nor the morning star is so wonderful. But he says, continuing on, he's like, plumber's logic, Teddy, blue collar people understand the necessity of justice in the legal system, as he just said, right? Because of the common good surpassing even individual good. But even if we should be speaking of particular justice, justice is the most important moral virtue for two reasons. And we can understand the first reason in regard to the subject in which justice inheres, namely in that justice inheres in the more excellent part of the soul, that is the rational appetite, the will. Guys, this is Plato. How cool. We covered all these people, right? This is Plato. Intellect, will, appetite, right? But other moral virtues inhere in a sense, appetites, emotions, the subject of those virtues belong to the emotions. So he's saying justice is the foundation of all things, and it springs from the soul, from the will, from the higher, the intellectual powers. Whereas other stuff like courage and generosity, good they may be, are both one, founded on justice, and two, are emotional responses. The highest, most important virtue is justice, he says. And of course, he's not saying that's ultimately important. He's talking about just the cardinal virtues, human behavior here. Number one, again, he's a rock-ribbed, perfectly orthodox Christian. Number one is charity, divine charity, love of God above all, love neighbor yourself. And in fact, as our Lord says, this is the law and the prophets. If you love God above all, love your neighbors yourself, you keep the Decalogue perfectly, the old and new law, and the common sense blue Teddy, blue collar logic of this class, just common sense, treating others with the way you want to be treated. In terms of human behavior. Right. It supersedes exactly simple. And indeed, Matthew 9:13 and 12:7, they're variants. I don't know, I'm paraphrasing here, but they're both like, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. Learn the meaning of these words, right? Okay. 132:33. Are individuals permitted to possess property as their own? What do you think Aquinas says? Are people permitted to possess property? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Of course. The Rerum Novarum on New Things, Pope Leo XIII, 1891, talks about why, again, inherently Catholic economics is not capitalist or communist. Both are bad. Like unrestricted hyper-capitalism is bad. That, yeah, I can through eminent domain seize Dave Schmidt's house, bulldoze all of Fort Russell to build a casino or something. That is incorrect. Just because I have enough strings to the pool or whatever, who cares? It's illegal. It's the market. It's like, yeah, I'm making up my own fake oligarch market. That's wrong. I don't have some kind of natural law to just Darwinistically. Capitalism is so inherent to Darwinism, right? Just like strong survive. I just have more money than him. I can pull more strings. I can sue him more. That's wrong. Also wrong.
We do that on occasion.
What?
We do. In fact.
We have our legal disputes every now and then.
Well, I mean, we're putting in a highway.
Yeah,
Your
right.
house is gonna, we'll pay you, but we'll determine.
I saw a funny thing on I saw a funny thing on Twitter about that. Some woman in Seattle refused to sell her house. They offered her $1 million. They built a mall around it. She still lives there.
Wow.
But she lives like in a nice garden, a little overrun with some, vegetables and stuff. There's this disgusting modernist building around it. It's like, okay. At
That's
least
where it's a private enterprise
Mhm.
that have to build around it.
Right.
They were the government.
They could just take it out. Yeah. Right.
In Seattle, the central district in Seattle, when they built this tunnels for the Mercer Island floating bridge for I-90, they took out a neighborhood. Those people didn't want to sell.
But they were compensated at least, right? I mean, that's awful, but like
Gave them,
for the memories and stuff. Yeah, sure.
Pretty lively.
there's a neighborhood that used to be part of the Arboretum in Seattle. They were going to put the freeway through there. And they made all the people move and bought their houses for, some sort of.
Right. That's terrible.
Thing, but then they never built it, and so it finally became part of the Arboretum.
Well, so if he criticizes those types of things, he of course stridently criticizes kind of communistic collectivist ideas too, even perhaps more so, as Pope Leo XIII does too. We can really say Pope Leo XIII is building off of. I think Pope Leo XIII writes, he says, names Aquinas like the angelic doctor fount of all. He really inspires kind of Thomistic revival. So Leo in 1891 is working heavily off of Thomas. So we're going to talk about these encyclicals like next month. Rerum Novarum, Quadragesimae Romano, Pope Pius XI, and of course John Paul II, Centesimus Annus, 1991. Here,
So we get, distracted with these, there's always examples or exceptions, right?
Mhm.
But I think the point remains, yeah, you can own property.
no, he says, I'll tell you why. So Aquinas says, you must own property. Property is essential to liberty. The devout Catholic position, not some right-wing libertarian, the Catholic position is private property is inalienable. You must own property. Here's why. I answer that two things belong to human beings regarding external goods. One is the power to manage and dispense external goods, and human beings are permitted to possess them as their own in that regard. And this is necessary for human life for three reasons. Aquinas says there's three reasons why it's necessary that you have private property. First, the power to manage and dispense external goods is necessary for human life because individuals are more careful in managing goods that belong to them alone than goods that are common to all or many. This is so true. This is so because individuals shunning work leave common property in the care of others, as happens when there are many servants. Oh, everyone owns this park. Oh, that's why it's disgusting.
Mhm.
I mean, it's so true. Oh, we have this communist idea of this local park. Oh, there's a bunch of needles on the ground and there's like urine stains. It's awful. I wonder why, vandals. Because I'm not gonna do it. Dave should clean. No, I don't know. If it's common, no one does it. That's why communism, I'm not trying to get off on something like Dan, like some capitalist soapbox. Communism is so disgusting and awful. I don't think I need to say that. I think it's obvious because it encourages it. Communism brings out the laziest features all of us have. No one likes to work. Well, now the state's gonna do it. Okay, they'll do it. He'll do it. Barb will do it. Where if it's my own, I take care of it, right? People are more careful managing goods belong to them than goods. Of course they are. If my Maserati is mine, I'm gonna make sure the oil's changed, whatever, and I get to enjoy this car. But if everyone in the neighborhood gets driving a Maserati, fine. I don't care. I'm actually angry. I might want to sabotage the Maserati, let them have it run out of gas, so I'm jealous. Communism breeds that kind of jealousy, all that kind of stuff. Second, the power of individuals to manage and dispense eternal goods necessary for human life, human affairs are conducted in a more orderly fashion if the requisite care in managing external goods be entrusted to individuals. But he says he's always throwing in things, common good. On the other hand, there would be confusion if unspecified individuals were to manage everything. So he's like, there is this kind of, we don't want World Economic Forum, dark forces, unspecified individuals pulling strings, right? We want people who want kind of transparency. Finally, last point here. Third, the power of individuals to manage and dispense external goods is necessary for human life because human beings content with their own property live in a condition of peace. And so we observe that quarrels arise rather frequently among those who possess goods in common and not individually. I wonder why. I wonder why like open relationships, that kind of things never work. I wonder why people are like, oh, everyone's married to everyone in this. We're so progressive. Oh, then everyone's dead from like, OK Corral shootouts and jealousy. I wonder why. It's almost like the church was correct about, one man, one woman, sanctity of marriage, till death do you part. I mean, maybe next time we'll get it. All of us are moving to the forest. Everyone sleeps with everyone. Everyone owns the same money. It's fine, right? It's just absolutely disgusting. Like, put aside the moral depravity of these things and the kind of moral bankruptcy. It's so illogical. It's so illogical. Obviously, two people come into each other who own even the smallest house, but it's theirs. And they can care for it. It makes them beautiful. So that's why distributism is such a Catholic philosophy. Distributism is anti-capitalist and communist. Distributism says, we don't want the capitalist idea where private property is compared by dark, unspecified shadow individuals like 5 or 6 oligarchs, BlackRock company, hyper-capital. We don't want that. We don't want the worst example where everything's controlled by one force, the government, communism, state. We want private property to be as numerous as possible. That's what distributism is. Distributism is the co-op model. We want as many individual owners as possible owning very little parts, but every part they own is their own. No sharing partners or toothbrushes or underwear or whatever. Like everything is yours and you're content with what you have. And you have this kind of Catholic golden mean idea of gratitude and simplicity and humility and all this kind of stuff. Aquinas is so awesome. How logical is that for our time now? That's why I pink starred these. In fact, we might just cover the pink stars today. That'd be actually fun. Because there are a lot of, we'll go to about the 920s, I think, today. That's fair enough. But this is so much applicable to our life. So much so. Page 140. Here the question he is asking, may one lawfully steal out of necessity? And so the natural law requires that superfluous things in one's possession be used for the sustenance of the poor. Aquinas is saying, logically, FYI, if you didn't know, Okay, if you have been blessed with wealth, Catholic common good says that in a sense belongs to the poor. 100% not, or 0% like the people will rise up, French Revolution, communism again. It is not like I'm poor, I get to show up at your mansion and I'm going to sleep on your floor and use your pool and stuff because this is mine. I own this. Not that. No, maybe you could better explain this classic saying of like,
Dying of starvation, you can steal a loaf of bread.
and we'll talk about that in a second. Yeah. That's where he comes down on here. He says that stealing is all sinful. Stealing is sinful, but actually, let me read that now. Off your excellent point, then I'll go back to what I was saying before. Still, if necessity is so pressing and clear that one has an immediate need of things at hand, when personal danger threatens, for example, there is no way to avoid it, one may lawfully alleviate one's necessity with the goods of another, whether one takes the goods openly or secretly, nor does this, properly speaking, have the character of theft or robbery. We'll talk about this with the Germans in a second, the Morgenthau plan. I don't know if you're familiar with this. Cardinal Frings, we'll talk about this in a second, post World War II. But exactly, yeah. Again, Aquinas is so blue collar, he's just ready to plumb and we rewire the house. He's plumber and electrician in one. He's just so like, right, your kids are starving. Christ talks about this. He talks about, remember when David, he's like berating the Pharisees properly, like as it always does, putting them in place. Remember when David entered his companions were hungry and entered the temple and ate the bread that was only for the priests when the Pharisees are criticizing, why do your disciples, pick grain on the Sabbath or something, that kind of thing. The Sabbath is made for man, not made for the Sabbath. Yeah, if your kids are starving, you can take bread. That's not stealing. But he says, but no, go ahead.
Well, you can add, our society, good or bad, and everything it is, addresses that through taxes, right? We provide welfare,
Yeah.
assistance, et cetera. It may or may not be enough or fairly or equitably done, but that's the modern
That's the goal at least.
approach
Sure.
to, to the issue.
Well, what he says here again, the natural law requires superfluous things of one's possession be used for the sustenance of the poor. There's a great quote. The poor need you, speaking to a rich person, the poor need you for their material well-being. You need them for your salvation. Today, I went to a communion service this morning at Sacred Heart. I love this because I obviously always prefer going to the mass, but Father Steve over there has Mondays off. Like a long story short, the Deacon Jim does a communion service at Sacred Heart in Pullman. They're very, very short. It's good to receive our Lord, to hear the readings, and it works where I do that before I take the boys into St. Mary's. Today's reading was from Matthew 25, Gospel. I'm sure the reading of the communion service mirrors that in the daily mass readings, I'm sure. So you will hear this today at 11:30. The sheep and the goats. I was hungry, give me food, thirsty, give me drink, a stranger, welcome, naked, you clothed me. Right. If you are rich and wealthy, absolutely pop a cork champagne. And the church says that's great. Private property is a necessity. It's yours. That belongs to the people. No, that belongs to the commissar. No, it doesn't. The communist bureaucracy does not. You, out of your free will, if you care about your salvation, should realize the extra stuff I have should go to the poor. And well, I don't know what that means in your life. Maybe that's charity starts at home, like your destitute poor, sister and her kids, or giving to food banks or whatever. And again, I don't want to know. May God repay you. Don't tell me what charitable stuff you do. I have no doubt you probably do a lot of very charitable stuff, and God bless you. I hope all of us are trying to do that. But yeah, 20 says very logically there. Like private property, yes. He would be welcomed at CPAC. He's super conservative, like private property. He's very much, but he's like, you cannot, we talk about social justice. We don't mean all the kind of nonsense that gets under umbrella today. Social justice ultimately means Matthew 25, feeding the hungry, the poor. Yeah.
I just had a thought that, in a way, the government, the more they take in taxes and stuff, in some ways, they're stealing from your ability to help the poor because
Sure, of course. Yeah, totally.
And it's been shown that the more the government intrudes in taking care of these less fortunate people, the less charitable people are.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
The money's used less efficiently because people don't own it. When it's the government, it's more distance and everything is done by employees. There's a reason why Family Promise is more successful than some of the
Good, yeah.
programs.
No, it's very Catholic again. Like, am I gonna sit here and say the Catholic Church has the answer to everything? Yes. I am. I don't care. Like, people can attack me for that. I do. I believe the Catholic Church, which she is the foundress of like, help organizations, charitable stuff. And most Catholic organizations have this once more subsidiary local focus. The worst thing you could possibly do is send it off to some no-name bureaucrats and headquarters half across the world, who just allocates funds or actually put it in my own pocket. Don't worry, I need a vacation to Cabo, like that kind of stuff.
What some of the European countries are doing.
Germany has like a church tax. I know you have to pay like an 8.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I was-
Got it.
I can talk about that, but I was going to
Okay.
talk about something else. Some of the European countries provide a guaranteed minimum income. So that if,
As in Norway maybe or something like that.
and I'm trying, is it Norway? I don't remember.
Denmark?
So guaranteed minimum income means that if you don't have an income, everybody will have enough income not to starve.
What do you think of that? What do you think of that?
I don't want children starving.
But is that again the
Is
government?
that-
I think I would have stored for the rest of the time.
What was that?
Right,
I'm a lazy person. I would probably just not work. and-
yeah, right,
But
right.
they again have very similar.
Is anybody really
Mechanisms.
not working in their life?
See, that's, so that, but see, that is the Aquinas thing. That's why Aquinas is so boss, is that Aquinas talks about, as Boethius did, people who do any kind of criminal behavior, even the criminal behavior of one of these 7 deadly sins, sloth. I hate when people call it sloth, sloth. Sloth. Hey, you guys want to go on it? You guys want to go on an Australian outback and see the koalas, kangaroos, and sloths? No,
It's slow.
sloth,
Good.
sloth, sloth. That is disgusting. Sloth. Anyways, sloth, one of these 7 deadly sins, sloth, being slothful. Aquinas says is its own punishment. You're 100% right. This is our fallen nature. How many people do you know during COVID, when I didn't have to go in the office, did it? And oh, the weed shop is open, great, and more alcohol. Like Christ is a great. I think it's in John's gospel. It might end chapter number 2, but it's like, and no one needed to explain human nature to him, for he understood it well. Right? That's the end of like one of those things, chapter 2 in John's gospel. Like he understood human nature perfectly. I think all of us, we don't understand human nature like Christ does, but we understand it well. We understand there's tons of people who are like, great, I don't have to work. I think you're exactly right, though, not just because you're quoting Aquinas, but Aquinas says that's your own prison. If you dedicate your life to smoking tons of weed and watching shows all day, like exactly the worst, like telenovelas kind of stuff, you are rotting from inside out. You're in prison. Like it's not, oh man, I envy her because she has this universal basic income. It's like everyone knows, I think, that a hard day's work isn't just pleasing because of the guilt that's built into Western societies that we have to work for. I think everyone knows it feels good to do stuff. Think about even like a workout. Pick your favorite workout. I set a new personal record, a new goal. It feels good. Or I got a story published, or I sold X amount of, like Monica's, I sold an X amount of Pop-Tarts I made. It's a new record. Like, it feels good to accomplish stuff and do things. So people would do that, but it's like they're torturing themselves. It's not like, oh, they're lucky. I will state honestly, I probably wouldn't mind winning the lottery. I'm not gonna be like, I hope I never, I don't play the lottery. I'm not gonna win the lottery. What I'm saying is, I just know like I think humbly say, please help me, Christ. I don't think it would ruin me because I just love to work. I struggle so much with, I probably confessed this before, like idleness on Sunday. I take Sunday off and I thought it's very annoying. I want to work out. I want to work. I like to work. I don't like resting. I have to force myself to rest. So what I mean is like the idea of like having like a lottery money and just doing nothing all day on a couch sounds disgusting. But you're right that a lot of people like that's appealing. The Japanese are so right in their statement of, I don't know what it is. They have some quote. I don't speak Japanese. I know it's surprising looking at me. I know you'd assume I do, but but there's some kind of Japanese saying about like the end of the day kicking your feet up. That you did just the right amount of work. Aristotle, Golden Mean. Anyways, okay. Aquinas, more of these pink notes. That's all we'll do today is the pink notes, and then we'll go through the book straight through the next 2 classes. And then the last class, I guess I'll have a surprise Aquinas thing. But yeah, I'm not deviating from that. I want to do Aquinas for 6 classes. I'm so excited. We can finish right now. We're not going to have some more stuff. But we can finish right now and be like, this is great. In our first 3 classes of Aquinas, we've done biography, we've done vis-a-vis Chesterton, like in-depth analysis of Aquinas' personal traits, whatever writings. talked about the 5 proofs and started just on Aquinas's logic. I said I wasn't gonna have numbers today. I think we've probably covered, if you're keeping track, right, 15, 20 things, I think, Arnie. We'll do some more, and then we'll, the next 2 classes, finish this up and then have a bonus at the end. Aquinas asks, can one lawfully sell goods for more than they are worth? I know a lot of people say, yeah, why not? If some schmuck online is gonna pay, $500 for whatever, that's okay. I answer that it is completely sinful to use fraud in order to sell goods for more than their just price, since sellers thereby deceive and cause loss to their neighbors. And so also Cicero says in his work on duties, there should be no deception in contractual affairs. Sellers will not set up false bidders, nor buyers suborn those who bid against them. Is not our society so overrun with disgusting, litigious, contracts, fake stuff? I don't like Jack Nicklaus, the golfer. I don't know if he was tricked into this, but someone like bought his name, image, and likeness. Now he's not allowed to even like talk about himself or something. Like he's kind of disgusting, predatory contracts. Is not our society overrun with this kind of garbage? Aquinas is talking here about the constant, eternal justice button that can never be switched off. That's my comment. I invented the button. I don't take credit. He doesn't say button. But I would say that it's like a switch that never goes off.
How does this square with the law?
Right. How does this square with the laws of the free market or whatever? I think Aquinas would say, I don't know. He's obviously writing 500 years before Adam Smith and kind of modern capitalism. I think he would say that the fair price isn't an intrinsic thing. Like, what is the fair price of bread? There is no platonic form of bread price. It would depend upon the market, but you have to play by those rules. So for instance, like let's say I want to find out what the price is for a used dishwasher. I'm going to sell that. That's my thing. I could go to like Duran Lewis, right, or Howard Hughes, people like, and I would find out what it is. I should not undercut them by $300. That'd be unjust, you would say. Because they're in direct competition, know the price for used dishwasher. Say it's like $500 or $600. I should not sell dishwashers for $20. That's wrong. Unless I want to gift it to someone. I should
Open competition.
Competition is fine. It must be fair competition. It must be like he's talking about, yes, this eternal justice of rules established. I also should not, agree to I have this elite market with these Saudi guys who are oil magnates, and they buy dishwashers for me for $3,000. And so, that kind of thing. We should not, even agreed fraudulence is not okay. And this is an amazing point by him, which I think is so logical into things like today, 2 consenting adults. Aquinas would say, no, that's not good enough. Of course, consent is always necessary. We should not do things that are non-consensual to people. Like, Betsy, I forged your signature. You didn't consent to this contract. Now I own 20% of your property. That's obviously wrong and criminal. Consent matters. He's saying consent is not enough. There's the eternal law of justice. If me and some guy agree to punch each other in the city square over and over again until we're both beat to a pulp, Aquinas would say that's not good enough that we're consenting to this. That's wrong to harm each other, even if we agree like that kind of thing. So it's like he's saying here,
Football players.
talk to me about it. I am okay. I'm serious. Yeah. What about football players in CT, the concussion things, whatever? I am a huge fan of football. I've said many times I consider it like artwork on par with Russian ballet. Give me the critique if you have one. Do you think football? Yeah, there is something wrong here that's too violent. Yes or no? Or what are your thoughts on football?
Yes. I
Okay.
will say that football is too violent, and the extremely shortened lifespan of the majority of football players is unreasonable to ask of them, and that they're not really making a full consent at the time they're deciding to do the football.
Okay, that's an argument.
So do the huge winnings offset some of that?
That's a great counterpoint.
They're paid.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
You're against football too?
I mean, if we get into the winnings, then it's how much can I buy it for? How much,
Yeah.
in a perfect world, right? Wherever that is, but, all sports, I'm not a sports guy, and I'm not saying they should be criminalized, all that. But, on the one hand, I see it as a huge industry that provides a lot of jobs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I do think for kids, it creates some teamwork and all that kind of good stuff, the morality building, I suppose. But on the other side, just like Hollywood and any other entertainment, that's all sports is. What if that money were directed in a different way? Look at the universities that don't have sports programs. And how many Nobel laureates they have produced versus the ones that did it, for example. That should say something, I think.
No, I would say some universities like the University of Washington, it produces some Nobel laureates and it has a football program.
Fantastic sports, yeah, sure.
But maybe we should consider sports that aren't so dangerous to the majority. Now, I am sort of speaking as a former bicycle racer. I have ridden a bike down a mountain at 50 miles an hour.
Right.
Perhaps crazy.
Right, sure. Let's save that for class number 6. We're finding it serious, and we'll apply Aquinas principles. You are all reminding me to. Should football be allowed? Whatever. I love this. I'm totally against you guys. I love this because my respect for you is like 30 out of 10. Both of you, everyone in this class. But I'm 100% for football. Let's debate that. We get to class number 6 according to logic, Aquinas principles, whatever. And I'm always open to being completely not just convinced, but destroyed intellectually. It'll be fun. Last couple of points here, very good points though. Yeah, and it's a great point too. Yeah, like Caltech, I think has Division III sports. Not to get too far off in the weeds here, but like there are people that play Division III sports that go on to play professionally and all that, but it's not the same, especially with the lack of athletic scholarships, like sport factories. You know, MIT is not known for a sports program. Even the Ivy League schools that play Division I, you know, I don't know. This would be a great debate. I think, although I think I stand on an opposite point of what both you're saying, you're making very good points. Let's save that for the last class, and we'll use everything we learned at Aquinas at that point. These kind of we'll do objections, might even do like a question, disputed question thing they did in the Middle Ages, like football should be banned. Yes, no, talk about it, whatever. And we'll go through a bunch of principles, kind of fun.
Of course, we could argue that cars should be banned also because.
Russell Kirk, Russell Kirk, the conservative guy. I thought he was kidding. I thought he was making me get off my lawn point, but he was like, yeah, the car is like the Jacobin, you know, French Revolutionary thing. It put equality on those people who shouldn't have it, who shouldn't be driving around with these things on. I don't know. I mean, like yeah, we could ban cars and everyone has to public transit, but doesn't that what the World Economic Forum wants to do? Klaus Schwab wants to ban cars and everyone has to be on the approved green train. You'll earn nothing, own nothing, and be happy. See, guys, I told you this class, you come around me like Klaus Schwab is awesome. I know you'd say that.
I know you're explaining this, but I want to throw in one point. I'm not saying football should be banned. I just don't know why, we should be supporting it through our tax dollars.
Sure, and we do.
Schools and all that.
Thank you for the clarification. You're right. Yeah, you never said that was to be banned. And those terms matter. Yeah. And that's
You wanna do it, go ahead.
and that's unassailable. Yeah, I think your position there is unquestionably correct. Like there's tons of funding for this, tons of subsidizing. Okay, let's get to that last 3 points here. Aquinas says, is it a sin to take interest for money lent? Aquinas, the Middle Age guys were very much against usury. Yes. I answer that interest taken for money lent is in itself unjust, since this is to sell something that does not exist and clearly constitutes inequality, which is contrary to justice. That the interest rate, especially predatory interest, like these one-day loans, 49%. I'm not paying you back because you helped me in a hard place with $100 you lent me. And when I pay you back $149 or whatever, you'll say, oh, the $49 was for the service. You just made something that is sterile, fecund, and alive. That's wrong. Church has always really condemned usury. If you want to talk about like the church is 100% stuck in the mud in a good way, like planted firm against communism. You cannot be a Catholic and a communist, period. But where the capitalism often runs into problems with the church is usury, credit card debt, that kind of stuff that's bad. The church has always said labor is the source of all value, not speculation.
What would the church or Aquinas then say about the stock market?
Yeah, probably bad. It's just speculative gaming of stuff. I don't get it. There's a point.
The point is like, well, I'm investing in you and
Yeah.
lending you money with the promise that you'll then return that.
I can give you a roundabout answer. I know the answer to this in a roundabout way. Well, would Aquinas say? No idea, because of ahistorical factors. Stock market is 20th century reality, right? 19th, whatever, but modern reality. There was no stock market. There was no kind of stock market at that time. So I don't know what he would say. What the church says is, if the church, I think, even has said that some amount of interest is fine, there's a certain limit. Predatory is the problem. But the number one thing is you must share the risk. That's where the sin comes in. That would be so if you and I are investing in Chevron stock together, and you're giving me some money to manage your portfolio or whatever, if I stand to lose with you, it can even be wholly act as too strong. It's fine, it's more illicit. But if I'm simply some predatory banker who I take your money and if you go bankrupt, nothing happens to me, or maybe it's good if I short sell you, then that's evil. For any kind of speculation, stock market or investing to be illicit, there must be shared risk. There cannot be, I am just from my surplus here, the scumbag money that I earn on interest, taking your money and investing it. And if it goes bankrupt, I don't lose it all. You're holding on the risk. That is a sin. I am using you. I'm enslaving you. You're my slave to make this money and make me more rich. If we have shared risk, if you and I together decide, both our families, go in on like a summer property, timeshare, whatever, we all invest together, nothing wrong with that. Even if I'm the principal partner, you are. The idea is shared risk.
The point then, I guess that's confusing is it just depends on the point, the perspective. Because you could look at it and say, I need a loan, I need money. And everybody's like, well, I'm not willing to take that risk. So I say, well, what if I paid you back a little bit extra than you gave me down the road? And we share that risk together?
That's a great question.
So then that's the same thing as a loan. But now it's the perspective of I'm saying I'll give you interest.
It's the question of consent again. Yes, the question because I'm consenting to the interest. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
likewise with the bank, the picture you painted, which I agree with largely, but on the other hand, if the bank doesn't stand to lose if my investment goes south, well, the bank is still building buildings, hiring staff. I mean, it's got a lot of outlay too. Now, granted,
I'm not their one customer, far from it. I'm gonna drop
Yeah, I'm
it.
not defending the banking industry because I think they're ripping us off, but on the other hand, to be fair, it is a
They have to
business.
take business risks, still like.
Yeah.
You still go under. I mean, think about like in the eighties, when banking regulations changed. And the interest rates went up, but the banks had a lot of their money invested in low interest home loans.
Yeah.
A whole lot of banks went under.
Well, sure. Look at the housing bubble in 2008, the same thing.
Yeah.
No, let's save this too as well if you see on the syllabus, we talk about communism, capitalism, rare novarum. Let's save it for economic questions. I'll even do some more research too. That's all I can give you now. And I never want to give you false information in terms of how much is consent plan. If I tell you, yeah, I'm willing to, if you lend me $100 now, I'll pay you back $110. Is that okay? It might be. I never want to give you false information. Last 2 points I have in pink note today. Is covetousness a sin? And Aquinas, of course, I answered that everything which consists of a proper measure, golden mean, evil necessarily results by having more or less that measure. Yeah, if you're not satisfied with what you have, not only the internal storms of disquiet, but of course it's sinful. And he says here, so there is sin against God, as all mortal sins are, since human beings by mortal sin contemn the eternal good for the sake of an earthly good. If you covetousness, you end up like the Emperor Caligula, who actually instructed his subordinates to bring him the moon. He said that. Because he was so covetous, it's never good enough, insatiable desire. I actually want you to bring the moon down, or you're dead, maybe. Like, it's just ridiculous, but it's like that's where covetousness leads. If it's never good enough, it's never going to be good enough. There was a sultan who had like 103 concubine wives, and he was always lustful. Of course he was. Because once you break the boundary of like the right proper thing is not enough, the logical thing is not enough, there is no bounds to sin.
I'm confused about the definition of coveting, covetous. I guess in my mind, I thought of it to be in my mind
An attitude versus acquisition. Sure.
versus.
So I think it's like kind of like how, what's the one like, I forget what the biblical thing is, but like something gives birth to sin. Covetousness, exactly. It could be like adultery of the heart. It's not actual adultery. But that living in a covetous state of constant desiring leads you to act on those desires to avoid the near occasion of sin. When you're in the near occasion of sin, you will break down and your covetousness will lead to actually acting upon that. And once you've exactly acquired through this avaricious attitude towards the world, illicit goods, you will never stop. So
this is what takes me back to where you began with. If we outlaw vice, if the government, and I have lustful thoughts about someone, well, that's a vice. Well, am I gonna go to jail?
we got to get you, we got to get you a lobotomy. So you can have those thoughts, yeah. Right. Well, yeah, I mean, exactly. I have a last question for you all. And we're gonna finish on this. That's been great. So, as classes are always great. This is sincere. Thanks to you. I mean that really. I think you see the evidence of that. And really, the discussion today was like really just awesome. So many great points by you all. Thank you. Aquinas says, "Is it always simple to wage war?" No. Of course, Aquinas and Augustine both are famous for just war theory. Aquinas says 3 things necessary for just war. 1, that a lawful authority wage it. Doesn't have kind of personal vendetta, clan fighting. It's a lawful authority wage it. to a just cause to wage the war. It's often that someone was we usually define just war as those that avenge wrongs, or when people in the community need to be punished if they have failed to rectify wrongs committed by our subjects, when they have failed to restore properly and justly seized. So lawful authority to command a war, and it's the whole idea of the army, right? It's the chain of command. It's the proper chain of command must be followed. Number one. Number two, a just cause. Number three, that it has an ultimate telos to promote good or avoid evil. I'm the lawful king. I can wage war. I've got the chain of command. It is to take back these lands that were unstolen. Two conditions, but my final thing is I want to punish these guys. I hate Dave Schmidt's kingdom. That's not good enough. Like it has to be because actually disposing them, whatever, like or bringing them into line is better for the common good. So that's three measure.
So
I have you say, and then I have a last question for you. Go.
I was gonna say, let's apply that to the Indian Wars.
Okay.
Okay,
You
so
mean the 19th century US versus Native Americans, that
Yes.
thing? Okay, not India subcontinent.
not India, so.
Okay,
Yes. What is generally in the US been called the Indian Wars.
okay.
So. Their land was unjustly taken. They fought. Did it become unjust for them to fight when it reached the point where it was clear they would lose?
Yeah, maybe you're sacrificing people for no, sure.
Just worth it.
Yeah, you don't charge a machine gun with spears at some point, the saying goes. Like, so that's the question I just want to ask you. Is the Russo-Ukrainian war a just war? Abided by everyone. Putin is just in attacking Ukraine because for 8 years, 20 years, NATO was, bothering him, whatever. Putin's the just guy here. Putin's evil. He's the usurper, the tyrant. Zelensky's actually the hero. He's just. People are saying that's him now. Like Ukraine has no chance to win. Are we just wasting supplies? Like the Indian wars, they're not going to win. More people are just going to die for no reason. No, we need to support them no matter what. I'm with Biden 100%. Talk to me about the justice or lack of justice at the current Russo-Ukrainian war. It's the last question I want to add.
So what is Putin's, my understanding was very, very thin, is he's, like you say, NATO, if I don't do this, Russia will be overrun. I'm trying to feed my people, this is a basket. I don't know, what is his?
Yeah, sure. I can make these cases for you very simply. On the case that all of us know, the American case, and I have no comment. I'm taking professorial neutrality, like lawyer client privilege. I'm not gonna tell you my opinion at all. But the American thing that we all know is like Ukraine is a democracy fighting for self-rule. We as Americans love that, can understand that, going back to fighting King George III. How dare Putin have this kind of idea that Ukraine is part of their ancestral homeland? They're a free country and they have good Western values. If they want to join NATO, that's no one's business, and etc. Putin's thing is that George H.W. Bush, I believe, 1991, promised the Russians, we're not going to expand NATO 1 inch. And they kept doing it a million times. Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, the Baltic States, Czech Republic. In 2008, the Bucharest summit, Putin literally says, if Ukraine joins NATO, it's the last straw, we will go to war. And so Ukraine is a very divided country. I don't know if you guys know that Zelensky, Ukrainian president, had to learn to speak Ukrainian. He's a Russian speaker by birth. The eastern part of the country is they're all Russophone. Now, you can be a Russian speaker and be anti-Russia. I'm just saying, like, it's a very divided country. Kiev until Lviv, the western part of the country is very pro-West. East is very pro-Ukraine. 2013, a deal is struck where the Americans are constantly agitating for Ukraine to join NATO, and Putin has said a million times, it's the last straw, I don't want this. The Ukrainians say, okay, we'll join the East, or we'll join the West. Maybe not formally NATO and the EU, but we're going to be in your sphere of influence, but we're going to lose all this grain money, whatever, oil from the Russians. We need $50 billion. And the EU says, how about 100 billion? And they're like, wait, what? We said 50 billion. That means saying Trish wants to hire me for something, and you're like, I'm like, Trish, how about my salary be $100,000 a year in your company? You're like, how about I pay you $5? How about this internship unpaid? The Ukrainians are like, okay, well, Putin's offering us full deal. So they go with the Russians because they offer them the money they want. That's when the famous Maidan protests come about, which people say, Americans say they're spontaneous protests. Russians say they're 100% CIA operation, whatever kind of stuff. In 2014, Putin invades the country. The last 8 years, Putin's argument is that Ukraine has not stopped with our weapons bombing the eastern part of the province, whatever, provoking. So finally, Putin had to come in this special military operation to save the people that were just being attacked by their own government, and this constant agitation in the West. The West says constantly, no, they're just fighting for democracy. I have no comment. But those are the two sides here. Who's just, who's right? Any thoughts on that?
what's really going on.
Had you heard anything about that at all?
No, I just the whole thing
Okay,
is
go,
just
if you want to know what the American perspective is on this is duh. The American perspective is type in CNN.com, listen to Fox News. I think Tucker Carlson of Fox News is the only guy who has some kind of like different than a mainstream opinion. But Fox News, oh, it's right wing. Fox News, CNN, and MSNBC all the same idea. We need to support Biden's idea of defending Ukraine no matter what, democracy, endless money, whatever. And they're right, because we need to support democracy, no matter, right? That's the American argument. That maybe that's true. But if you want the opposite perspective, look up John Mearsheimer. John Mearsheimer is a distinguished professor at University of Chicago. His video on the Ukraine war has like 30 million views. And he says
How do you spell his name?
Mearsheimer, MEARSHIM, and then EREIR. If you type in John Mearsheimer, Chicago, Ukraine, you'll find it. Even if it's misspelled in the back end. I'm not sure if it's MEIER. John Mearsheimer. Mearsheimer argues that it's all our fault. That we just endless lies to the Russians, expansion of NATO, and that Putin had no choice. He's not saying Putin's a good guy, but we've provoked him into this. I don't know.
I guess I get frustrated that so many times the US doesn't have a clear picture. And it gets into these
US not a clear picture in wars. Come on, I've never heard this before.
countries more than we help them.
Sure.
Like Reagan, right?
Yeah, and like, and I'm serious here. I say this to Sam, who's my friend, my brother. God bless him. Like, thank you for your service. All the brave men and women who do fight armed forces are heroes. I sincerely mean that. But it's like that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about like U.S. foreign policy, people who just deciding stuff in some think tank in Washington, like send more troops. You know, like why? I don't know. And again, I'm not trying to impregnate my answer. Maybe I'm 100%. Maybe I'm on Biden's special force for like supporting Ukraine in academia. I don't know. Maybe. I'm not going to say how I feel about this. I'm just saying it is worth knowing both sides of the story. Are you not angry that we can't watch Russian media? I don't know if you know that. You can't watch Russian media in America. It's banned. It's censored. Why?
Or we have another wrinkle, especially lately in the news, as far as if we continue our support of the Ukraine, I'm not saying we shouldn't, but if we do, well, then China with supporting Russia, and then we have Taiwan and everything else thrown in there. If our involvement in the Ukraine-Russian war can lead to an even larger conflict with China involved in us, okay,
Dave,
that's my choice.
Dave, what's the problem? I don't I don't, okay, some people who are morons say that, you know, we went to fight Afghanistan. There are a bunch of guys like, you know, in caves and whatever. And they say that we couldn't even handle them. Why? But they're wrong. We can fight Russia and China and Iran too. Let's also fight Iran. And if a nuclear war happens, who cares? That's not a big deal. Yeah, that's some of the logic that's going on. I mean, the limited nuclear is disgusting. I will break my neutrality and say, I really am praying, you know, Beatitudes, blessed are the peacemakers. No, we don't want this fight everyone kind of attitude. And I say this, I will also confess, I am like a diehard American patriot. The only thing more important to me than being an American is being a Catholic. But like, I love America. I want our country to be good. I don't think we should fight the entire world.
Right.
Exactly.
Ukraine is complicated, but now Taiwan. That seems pretty clear cut to me from what I've heard.
You want to defend Taiwan?
I think so,
Really?
because they want, I mean, there's.
I say goodbye to
With all
Yes,
the
you guys
are. Yeah, so there.
Oh, man.
This is back to the Indian wars. I mean, if you go back far enough, you know, who are the natives of each country in the world? And shouldn't they all get their land back and quit messing with each other?
If we talk about Idaho, if we talk about the Nez Perce, their creation.
Are you seriously suggesting an Idaho insurrection against the government? Oh, no. That's
I was going to say, in Congress today, the creation stories of most cultures around creation happening somewhere else. And the Nez Perce have creation happening locally. They have their, you know, this rock is where this God did this, and this rock, whatever, and this is where creation happened. Which is a sign that they have been here for a long time.
Yeah, again, this is a whole other topic as we, Father Ben has always asked you to close out with prayer if you don't mind. We're past time in the best way. I mean, we're early about, so I want to be like, that's a great point. And I'm all for that. In fact, my grandfather of happy memory, God rest his soul, was huge on like repatriation for Native Americans. And like, I agree. I'm not like, oh, that's too bad. But it's a complicated question too, because, yeah, the Lakota Sioux, maybe who they hate more than the white man is this other tribe, who's actually, you know, it's like, well, how far back you have to go, who's native, you
Well,
know?
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, everyone, you know, the New Mexico and Arizona, all these stupid white guys, they should just give it back to Spanish speakers. Oh, wait, they stole from these Native Americans, from these guys. How far does it go back? It's like everyone's stolen everyone's land. I'm not saying there's no injustice. It's like, it's not that simple. Just like return these people. It's like, well, they're probably there. Haha, this is awesome. The government gave us back. But they don't know we stole from 30 people, like all these people you're at.
Yeah.
Anyways, Father Ben, if you don't mind, thank you as always.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. God our Father, we thank you for this opportunity to be enriched by your wisdom. We have learned the principles of justice. We ask you to give us the grace to live them out in our lives through Christ our Lord.
Amen.
The Lord be with you. Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Thank
Thank you, Dr. Passion.
Thank you, everyone. Until next class.